Presentation number 8 on the evolution of socialism is Marxism. Previously, in Section 7, we discussed the origins of socialist thought. In Section 8, we'll consider Marxism, part of the evolution of socialism. The influence of the Industrial Revolution. As the Industrial Revolution rapidly spread, large numbers of rural poor relocated to crowded urban areas to work in the new industries that developed. Previously, where only the nobility enjoyed a significantly higher standard of living, industrialization led to increasing prosperity for the growing number of merchants, managers, bankers, and industrialists who began to attain these benefits as well. The contrast and concentration of poor in these urban areas led reformers, influenced by the writings of Godwin, Bentham, Ricardo, and others, to advocate measures in order to improve the existing social economic order, allowing a more equal distribution of society's wealth and benefits among those less fortunate. One 19th century intellectual in particular was impatient with society's lack of progress towards socialism and developed a plan to hasten its implementation. Karl Marx. His major works were the Communist Manifesto, written in 1848, an essay on Marxist ideology and the coming revolution, and Das Kapital in 1867, which was critical of capitalism and predicted its fall and replacement with socialism. Marx stated that people were destined for freedom and creativity, but had been prevented from developing completely because they were slaves to their basic needs. Capitalism had increased productivity to the point at which all basic material needs could be satisfied. Once basic needs were provided, people could devote more of their time to the development of their own humanity. However, capitalism was exploitive in nature, so that goods were not equally distributed. In addition, Marx contended that the capitalists forced workers to produce an excess or surplus value, which they kept for themselves as profit. He thought that the surplus really belongs to the proletariat, or the workers, so any profit that the capitalist makes is ill-gotten. He stated that the capitalist is therefore a villain, or a parasite who lives by sucking the economic lifeblood of the proletariat. He believed the capitalists are thieves who prey on those less fortunate, and they must be erased from society when the proletariat takes over. Marx proposed that the first stage of the revolution would be a dictatorship to eliminate all but a single class, the proletarian class. This would be done by a process of re-education. If that failed, the dictatorship was justified in removing from society anyone who opposed it. Marx thought that gradually more people would adopt the socialist ethic, meaning a willingness to work to one's capacity and to share the fruits of one's labor with the rest of society. As the system became ever more socialistic, it would become increasingly productive, and people would take a renewed pleasure in their work. Furthermore, Marx theorized that the more socialistic the society becomes, the more productive and happy it will be. Gradually, the changes in society's foundations will lead to a second stage in the Marxist state. As the different social classes begin to disappear and productivity continues to increase, human conflict will decrease, and so will the need for dictatorship of the proletariat. Eventually, when the last non-proletariat is gone, the state will have withered away. The police state will cease to exist, and society will become a democratic utopia. Internationalism/globalism. Marx believed that socialism would be adopted in every country in the world sooner or later. Marx argued that nation-states were actually a technique used by the capitalists to keep people who really had a great deal in common separate from one another. National boundaries were only artificial separations designed to reinforce the capitalist system, hence the slogan, "Workers of the world unite." So we see that Marxism evolved from socialism and socialist thought. It was born out of an impatience with society's failure to naturally adopt socialism, and it was a plan through revolution to force it upon societies. Marx, believing that the revolution was at hand, formed the Communist League with other European socialists in 1848. Its mission was to educate the proletariat and to develop a class conscience among them necessary for the coming revolution. The following year, Marx took his family to England and remained there for the rest of his life, except for occasional visits to the continent. Marx dedicated his entire life to his ideology. Except for a brief period when he worked as a reporter for Horace Greeley's New York Daily Tribune, he had no income. Time and again, he watched his beloved family suffer as his financial circumstances brought them to the brink of poverty. Each time he was rescued by his benefactor and fellow socialist, Friedrich Engels, a member of a wealthy Prussian textile family who owned mills throughout Europe and England. In 1864, Marx joined with Engels and other leading socialists in establishing the first Socialist Internationale, formerly named the International Association of Working Men. Though it was founded with great fanfare, eloquent speeches, and even more glowing hope, it lasted only a dozen years, ultimately disbanding due to internal power struggles, as well as the external factors such as the improving conditions and standard of living of European workers. Friedrich Engels. Following Marx's death, Engels became the leader of the socialist movement and helped organize the Second Internationale in Paris in 1889. Its headquarters moved to Brussels the following year. Though Engels was very influential, conditions had changed and a new generation of socialists was emerging. The Second Internationale was set up to accommodate nationally organized socialist parties, such as the German Social Democratic Party, the English Labour Party, the French Socialist Party, the Russian Socialist Democratic Party, and several other European national parties. As the 1800s came to a close, the workers' revolution envisioned by Marx did not materialize. In addition, rather than limiting itself to economic issues, the Second Internationale became very heavily involved in political matters. Its members actively tried to bring about reforms through existing political structures, instead of insisting that only revolution could effectively change the conditions they opposed. As the 1800s came to a close, and the revolutionary change towards socialism envisioned by Marx did not occur, European social democracy evolved from Marxism. It called for a socialist reform through existing political structures, not through revolution. Key points for Section 8 on Marxism. Marx envisioned that a revolution of the workers would eliminate all but the proletarian or working class and eventually usher in a socialist paradise. By the late 1800s, the revolution envisioned by Marx did not occur. European social democracy evolved with the purpose of achieving socialist reforms using existing political structures instead of using revolution.